If you bought a high-end sports car and parked it in a garage for 40 years, the engine would eventually seize, the rubber would perish, and the seals would dry out. We call this wear and tear, and we have been conditioned to believe that the human body ages in exactly the same way. We think our joints are like brake pads that simply wear thin, and our skin is like upholstery that eventually cracks under the sun. But this is a fundamental mechanical misunderstanding. The human machine is not a static object. Unlike a car, your body is a self-repairing engine that is constantly replacing its own parts. Every 7 to 10 years, you essentially have a brand new skeleton. Every month, you have a new set of skin cells. In theory, a machine that can replace its own parts should be able to run indefinitely. So why don't we? Why does the new skin look different at 50 than it did at 20? The distraction we've been sold is that we are simply running out of juice, or that our batteries are dying. We are told to buy supplements to boost our systems or lotions to rehydrate our surfaces. But the problem isn't a lack of fuel, and it isn't a lack of parts. The problem is a massive software glitch in the repair cycle. Aging, at its core, is a failure of communication. It is what happens when the maintenance crew inside your cells gets the wrong set of instructions. Imagine a construction crew that is supposed to be rebuilding a bridge, but the blueprints are smudged, the foreman is asleep, and the workers start using old, rusted scrap metal instead of fresh steel, because they've forgotten where the warehouse is. When we talk about aging, we're talking about the moment the body stops prioritizing repair and starts prioritizing storage. The trash starts to pile up in the hallways of your cells, the signals get crossed, and the self-repair button gets stuck in the off position. Today, we're going to look at the actual physics of this glitch. We're going to see how your body literally caramelizes its own proteins, why zombie cells are sabotaging your healthy tissue, and how to mechanically flip the repair switch back to on. To understand why your tissues lose their flexibility, we have to look at a process that usually happens in the kitchen, not the body: caramelization. If you take a clear liquid sugar and heat it up, it turns into a thick, brown, sticky mess. As it cools, it becomes hard and brittle. This exact chemical reaction, known as glycation, is happening inside your bloodstream every single day, and it is the primary reason your internal springs start to rust. Your body is held together by a scaffolding of proteins, primarily collagen and elastin. Think of these like the high-quality rubber bands and steel springs that give your skin its bounce, your joints their cushion, and your arteries their ability to pulse with every heartbeat. In a young, healthy system, these proteins are clean and disconnected, allowing them to slide over one another and stretch without effort. The problem starts with the fuel in the system. When you have an excess of sugar floating in your blood, those sugar molecules act like tiny drops of industrial glue. They start to bump into your pristine collagen fibers and physically stick to them. Over time, these sugars don't just sit there. They form permanent, crusty bonds called advanced glycation end products, appropriately abbreviated as AGEs. This is where the mechanics fail. These AGEs create cross-links between your protein fibers. Imagine taking those clean, sliding rubber bands and pouring superglue all over them. Suddenly, they can't slide. They can't stretch. They become tangled and stiff. This is why your skin starts to sag and develop deep creases. It's not just a loss of moisture. It's that the internal scaffolding has been glued into a collapsed position. But the sugar crust doesn't stop at your skin. It happens in your joints, turning the flexible cartilage into a stiff, grinding material. It happens in your eyes, clouding the lenses. Most dangerously, it happens in your arteries. Your blood vessels need to be elastic to manage blood pressure. When they become glycated, they turn from flexible hoses into brittle glass pipes. Every time you have a massive blood sugar spike, You are essentially slow cooking your own proteins, adding another layer of rust to the machine. This isn't just a side effect of aging. It is a physical, chemical hardening of the body that happens one meal at a time. While the sugar crust is hardening your proteins from the outside, a much more sinister mechanical failure is happening inside the cells themselves. To understand this, we have to look at the body's retirement policy. Normally, when a cell gets too old, too damaged, or its genetic code becomes too garbled to function, it is programmed to commit a clean, quiet biological suicide. This process ensures that broken parts are removed before they can cause a system-wide failure. But as we age, some cells develop a glitch. Instead of dying when they are broken, they enter a state called senescence. They become zombie cells. They are essentially retired workers who refuse to leave the factory floor. They stop doing their job, they stop dividing, and they stop contributing to the repair of the body. But they don't just sit there quietly. A zombie cell is mechanically hyperactive in the worst possible way. Because it is broken and stressed, it begins to scream. It sends out a constant, frantic stream of chemical signals that tell the immune system there is an emergency. This creates a state of low-level, permanent smoldering inflammation throughout your entire body. In the scientific community, they call this inflammaging. Think of it like a single piece of fruit rotting in a bowl. It releases gases that cause every other piece of fruit around it to ripen and rot faster. These zombie cells do exactly that to your healthy tissue. They leak cellular acid that breaks down the collagen in your skin, degrades the mineral density in your bones, and even clouds the neural pathways in your brain. The older we get, the more of these zombies accumulate in our machinery. By the time you reach 60, your body is effectively a high-end factory where 20% of the workforce is sitting at their desks, refusing to work and actively throwing wrenches into the gears of the people who are still trying to do their jobs. This accumulation is why a small injury that used to heal in 2 days when you were 20 now takes 2 weeks. Your repair crew is so busy trying to manage the chaos caused by the zombies that they don't have the bandwidth to fix the actual damage. If you want to stay young, you don't just need new parts. You need a way to finally fire the workers who are sabotaging the plant. If glycation is the rust and zombie cells are the saboteurs, then we need to talk about the most important mechanical system you possess, the internal incinerator. Biologically, this is called autophagy, which literally translates to self-eating. While that sounds terrifying, it is actually the most sophisticated recycling program on the planet. Inside every one of your 30 trillion cells, there is a tiny, high-heat furnace called a lysosome. Its job is to identify broken proteins, tangled sugar clots, and worn-out machinery, pull them inside, and melt them down into raw materials. The cell then uses those raw materials to build brand new, perfectly functioning parts. This is how the human machine stays young. It doesn't find new parts from the outside. It manufactures them by recycling the old ones. The problem is that this incinerator has a very specific mechanical on switch. It only turns on when the cell senses that it is low on fuel. For the vast majority of human history, our ancestors went hours or even days without a meal, which meant the incinerator was running almost constantly, keeping their internal machinery spotless. But in our modern world, we are almost never low on fuel. We eat from the moment we wake up until the moment we go to sleep. Because we are constantly dumping fresh fuel into the tank, the body's sensors, specifically a protein called mTOR, stay stuck in growth mode. When you are in growth mode, the maintenance crew is sent home. The incinerator is switched off. Why would the cell bother recycling old parts when there is a fresh delivery of fuel arriving every 3 hours? By constantly snacking and eating high-energy meals, we have effectively put our internal cleaning crew on a permanent lunch break. The trash of the sugar glue and the debris from the zombie cells just continue to pile up in the corners of your cells because the furnace never gets the signal to start the fire. Aging, in this sense, is simply the physical result of a house that hasn't been swept in 30 years. To reverse this, we don't need to add more stuff to the system. We need to step back and let the machine finally do its own chores. So, how do we mechanically flip the switch? How do we force the body to stop storing trash and start burning it? The secret lies in a biological principle called hormesis. Think of it as a mechanical reboot for your cellular sensors. Your body is designed to be pushed. When you subject a machine to a brief, controlled amount of stress, it triggers an emergency repair response that is far more powerful than any supplement you can swallow. One of the most effective ways to trigger this is through temperature. When you expose your body to significant cold, like a 30-second blast of freezing water at the end of your shower, your cells perceive a threat to their survival. In response, they immediately activate protection mode, producing specialized proteins that act like internal folding irons, going through your cells and smoothing out the tangled, misfolded proteins that lead to aging. It is a literal straightening of the gears. The same thing happens with heat. Sitting in a sauna for 20 minutes creates heat shock proteins that act as a quality control team, hunting down damaged cellular parts and dragging them to the incinerator we discussed earlier. You are essentially using the environment to kickstart the maintenance crew that has been sleeping on the job. But perhaps the most powerful mechanical reset is the one we find in movement. Not just any movement, but short bursts of intensity. When you push your muscles to the point of temporary fatigue, you drain the local fuel tanks. This drop in pressure tells the growth sensors to shut up and the repair sensors to take over. You are creating a vacuum that sucks the sugar out of your blood before it can turn into that sugar glue we call glycation. By alternating between fuel loading and fuel draining, you keep the internal pipes clear and the zombies at bay. You are reminding the machine that it is still in service and that the repair blueprints are still required. Aging is not a mysterious, unstoppable force. It is the physical result of a machine that has lost its maintenance schedule. When you understand that the rust is just caramelized sugar and the fatigue is just a collection of cells that forgot how to die, the solution becomes clear. You don't need to fight time. You just need to clear the pathways. By managing your fuel spikes, giving your internal incinerator time to run, and occasionally stressing the system back into repair mode, you are giving your 30 trillion cells the signal they need to stay sharp. Treat your body like the sophisticated, self-healing engine it is, and it will keep its snap for decades longer than you've been told is possible. If this mechanical breakdown changed the way you look at the mirror, hit the like button so we can get these instructions to more people. Subscribe to stay tuned for our next deep dive into the human machine, and leave a comment below to let me know which part of your internal biology you want us to take apart next. Keep the gears turning, keep the incinerator hot, and I will see you in the next one.